Hello and welcome to another episode of Casual Learning. I'm your host, John Bannan. What's the deal with solipsism? Solipsism. Now, maybe you've never heard of this concept before. It's a philosophical concept. And what it means is it's a philosophical idea that only one's own mind is sure to exist. Knowledge of anything outside one's own mind is unsure. In other words, the external world and other minds cannot be known and might not exist outside the mind. An extreme take on solipsism claims that the world and other minds do not exist. And this is claimed to be irrefutable. The solipsist believes himself to be the only true authority, all others being creations of their own minds. Okay, so solipsism is basically this idea that the only thing you can be completely sure of is your own mind, and that's it. Everything else, you can't prove it exists. It may not be real. The only thing you can know for real is your own mind. The famous mathematician Rene Descartes has a famous saying, which is his take on the whole idea of solipsism. And you've probably heard this. Rene Descartes has this famous saying. In Latin, it's cogito ergo sum, meaning, I think, therefore I am. I think, therefore I am. So, what Rene Descartes was asserting was that the very act of doubting one's own existence served, at a minimum, as proof of the reality of one's own mind. There must be a thinking entity, in this case the self, for there to be a thought. So I think, therefore I am. Because I think, therefore I must know that with certainty that at least I, the self, exist. Now, I tend to think that Descartes could say more than simply this. But this is not the way I would say it. I think a better way to say the truth with regard to solipsism is more like I think, therefore it is. Meaning that because we think, this proves that there must be an material reality outside our own minds. Otherwise, we couldn't think at all. So, I think this is a better way addressing solipsism, which is false. The solipsism is false. I think, therefore, it is. It meaning material reality outside material reality exists because you think. Now, why is that? You should watch my video on consciousness and the soul, and it'll give you my take on the mind and what causes it. The mind is in the brain, and the brain is made of matter, and matter is, matter, energy, governed by the laws of physics. So, in that video, I explain how consciousness is really a derivative reality of material reality. So consciousness is a derivative reality of material reality. So you can't have consciousness unless you have a source material reality. So a derivative reality requires a source material reality. So the very fact that you can think at all, thinking is a derivative reality, proves that there must be a source material reality, because you can't have a derivative of a reality unless you have a source material reality. The very act of thinking proves the existence of a source material reality. I think, therefore, it is. Now, I'm going to give you an analogy as to how consciousness works. Consciousness is in the brain. It's caused by very complicated electrochemical structures and brain circuitry based on neurons. It's very dense, very small, very complicated, and it's capable of this neat trick, which is it's capable of interacting with each other and interacting as if something exists or something is real when that thing isn't real. But it can act. The circuits can go back and forth in their relays and act with each other, interact with each other, as if something exists. And that's what creates consciousness. Consciousness is that thing which, by virtue of the fact that the brain circuitry acts as if it is real, creates it as real. It becomes. An analogy would be something like this. Imagine there's a crowd of people walking down the street, and 100 people walking down the street, and a big guy, a real big guy, plows through the middle of that crowd. He's going faster than everybody else, and he's going in a zigzag fashion. Well, he's going to force all those people to move to the side and in different directions as he's going down through that crowd. And if you were an observer on top, you could see the people getting pushed out of the way as this large man forces his way in a zigzag pattern down the street.
So you can see the other people around it moving in reaction to this large man going down the street. Now, what would happen if everybody in this crowd agreed that they're going to behave as if a very large man is walking in a zigzag pattern down that street, even though he's not? There is no large big man doing that. But they all agree, let's just say it's play acting, they all agree that they're going to act as if this was really happening. And what you would see is, you would see the same pattern of people being moved to the side and pushed around, as if this man was actually pushing everybody, even though he doesn't exist. So you see how the crowd can create a derivative reality, the reality of this essentially imaginary man walking through this crowd, even though the man isn't really there. And if you think about it, you can think about it in terms of particles in a way. You have a bunch of particles, and some bigger particle decides it wants to go through here, and it's pushing all these guys out of the way. All right. And what is that particle really known by? It's known by its force. It's known by the reaction it has on the other particles. So the particle itself, you can't see the particle itself. You see the forces of the particle, the force of the particle, and what it does to other things, but not the particle itself. So, like the analogy I gave you, if all these particles were behaving as if this thing existed, even though, let's say, it didn't, how would you tell the difference? How would you know whether there was an actual particle there or not? You couldn't tell. You couldn't tell. And that's what consciousness essentially is. It's circuitry acting as if something is real and reacting with itself and its relays as if something was real. And that's what creates its reality. That's what creates the being of this derivative reality. It's a trick. But it's real nonetheless, because the particles are behaving the same way they would as if the thing really did exist. So, for all intents and purposes, if everything acts as if it exists in the brain circuitry, it does exist. That's the trick of consciousness. So the circuitry in the brain, the electrochemical circuitry in the brain, can create a derivative reality because it acts as if this derivative reality exists. And that derivative reality, as a result, becomes real. At least, something that you can sense. And this is a property of matter. Matter has the ability to create derivative realities in certain complicated settings, like the brain circuitry of a human being. And this derivative reality, it includes things like ideas. So derivative reality includes ideas, thoughts, colors, smells, touch, taste, sense of space, feelings, sounds, language, Any type of visual image pain, sense of self, etc. So, derivative reality is consciousness. It's all those things that we consider the self. So, when Rene Descartes says, I think, therefore I am, what he's really saying is, I think, therefore I have a consciousness, which is the same as saying, I think, therefore I have a derivative reality. But because it's a derivative reality, it means there must be a source reality. You can't have a derivative reality without a source reality. So there's an outside material reality. Its existence is necessitated by the fact that there's a derivative reality. So I think, therefore, it is. So solipsism is wrong. The simple fact that there's a derivative reality, the simple fact that you can think, that you have ideas. Oh, math is also included in this. The simple fact that there's such a thing as math, or there's such a thing as colors, or sounds, or sights, or thoughts, or pain, or smells, or images, any sort of image in your mind, or sense of self itself, proves that there must be a source material reality for that to even exist. Its existence is dependent upon that source material reality. Therefore, it proves that as well. So solipsism it's false. Solipsism is false, and this is the proof. As to why. The brain creates consciousness and this derivative reality. But the brain is made of matter and energy. It's part of what the Big Bang created. The Big Bang is a continuous expanding entity of matter, energy, space-time, gravity, governed by the laws of physics, all the different particles in physics. It's wrong to think of the brain or even the mind as something separate from the material reality created by the Big Bang, because it's not. The Big Bang occurred and it has expanded over 13.8 billion years. And some areas of it are denser than other areas. The lowest density in terms of the Big Bang, we call this outer space. But outer space is still a material reality. It's just less dense than other things. The brain is a much denser form of material reality. But the brain is surrounded by space-time and space and air. And this is also forms of material reality, just less dense forms of material reality. So the brain is connected with the rest of material reality. All of material reality is essentially areas of low density and high density in an expanding Big Bang. That's what it is. So in a real sense, it's all connected. All material reality is connected. It's all one thing. An expanding Big Bang in a very broad way of looking at it. So, Obviously, some things are much more dense than other things, and we can think of those things as separate than the less dense things, and that's fine. But the truth is, they're not exactly separate. They're all part of an expanding Big Bang. They're all part of, because they're all part of the expanding Big Bang, they're all subject to the same laws of physics. So the mind, which is a creation of the brain, and because the brain is made of matter, it's subject to the laws of physics. And you don't have the laws of physics unless you have a Big Bang. So the mind itself necessitates the reality of the Big Bang. Because without the Big Bang, you don't have the laws of physics. And without the laws of physics, you don't have the brain. And without the brain, you don't have the mind. So the mind necessitates, again, an outside material reality that we know as the Big Bang and the cause of the laws of physics. Without the laws of physics, there is no mind. Can't exist. So again, it's more, I think, therefore it is. In this case, the Big Bang. It is. So the very fact that we can think at all, or see a color, or feel something, proves that there must be an outside material source reality for this derivative reality, which we know is the Big Bang. So again, solipsism is wrong. It's wrong. Just incorrect. It's a flawed philosophical proposition. You can't you can't separate the mind from the brain without the help of God and allowing you to have an immortal soul. But generally speaking, you can't separate the mind from the brain. And the brain is material, and the brain only exists because of the laws of physics and the fact that there was this particular Big Bang. So you can't separate the existence of the mind from the fact that there was a Big Bang. So thinking proves the existence of outside material reality. In this case, we know it to be the Big Bang. So I wouldn't get concerned about solipsism and all its different variations, because the truth is there has to be an outside material reality in order for us to think or see or taste or feel or even have a sense of self. It has to be there. It's a derivative reality, which means there has to be this outside source material reality. So it proves the existence, the very fact that we think, proves the existence of this outside material source reality. Has to be there. So I wouldn't worry about solipsism. As far as I'm concerned, it should be a dead philosophy. All right, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Maybe I'll address them in the comment section or do a future video on them. Please press the subscribe button and the like button. Appreciate it. And watch my other videos where I go more into consciousness and other areas that are very interesting and that you can learn a lot about. Take care.